Alright, I would like to go over domain and range. And this can be one of the trickier ones because it's a visualizing, a visualization of your math. Being able to visualize any of your math helps you to be able to understand it, but sometimes this can get tricky. You flip the x and y values, and you're looking at the range versus the domain. So it's imperative, though, that you're able to understand this. Domain and range. The domain is the set of a function's inputs. It's the x values. Look at the x-axis to be able to see domain. Range is the set of a function's outputs, the y values. It deals with the y-axis. Look at the y-axis to see the range. Now, one thing that you're going to have to do, though, is be able to write that interval that contains the domain and range. And primarily what your MyMathLab uses is interval notation, and it looks very much like a coordinate. Okay, a set of parentheses with the comma in between the two numbers that you're going to have, or the infinity symbol. So these are parentheses. These are brackets that mean the point is not included. Whenever you use parentheses, this is kind of like your open circle. Do you remember graphing inequalities? One variable inequalities where you just use a number line. Less than, greater than symbols. Less than, greater than symbols were the open circle. Less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, was your closed circle. Brackets are a way in which to graph that to say that the point is not included, that number. You're saying it goes all the way up to that point. So let's say the point was 4, but it didn't include that point. It could be 3.9999999. Never making it to 4, but we don't write that. We write 4 in there, but we put a parenthesis with it to show that it's not included. Square brackets right here, these are brackets that mean the point is included. Square brackets. And again, it's like doing your inequality symbols, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. Use that to mean that the point is included. So again, the domain is the set of a function's inputs, what we put into the function, which is our x values, and we look at the x-axis. So over here, we're going to look at finding the domain and the range of this function. So we'll start with the domain, and the domain is what? The x or the y? It's our x values. Our domain is our x values. So this is my x-axis, and this is my y-axis. So I'm going to look at everything on x. Now, granted, these graphs continue on forever. This is just a little snippet of this graph. These two lines continue on out and continue to go. So whenever I look at this, what I'm looking at, let me use this, is that my domain is actually everything through here. It's all of my x values. Because if I had a huge piece of paper, these lines would just continue to go out and to go out. Now forgive my drawing ability. This is not a good looking parabola, but the context is the same, is that this continues on and on and on. So my domain will be from negative infinity to positive infinity. And I use the parentheses around those because you cannot contain infinity. It goes on forever. No brackets for infinity, always parentheses. So that was my domain. Those two go on forever, but I can look at my graph where I have it and I can see that my range doesn't. My range stops here at 2, but it continues on and on and on to infinity. It just keeps going. But that's the cutoff point too. Nothing beneath 2. So for writing this, do I use a parenthesis or a bracket? I use a bracket. Bracket tells me that a negative 2 is included, and it goes all the way to infinity. So I have a bracket, a square bracket, sorry, and a parenthesis. That is my domain and range for that function. Now, if you would like, pause the video and see if you can get the domain and range. Let's see if we get the same answers. Okay, so let's look at this one. Let's find the domain first. All right, so I look along the x-axis and I see that it does not go past here. This is where it starts or it begins, however you view it. But it does continue on and on and on, going to infinity. That point is included. How do I know that? Because the points are filled in, just like what we did with inequalities. That point is filled in. So that point is included. So bracket 1 to infinity. My range is also limited. Okay, it starts down here at 0, and guess what it does? It continues on and on and on, because as I draw this out, this is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It may have to be a value of x that is like 100 trillion before this value got up to 10 or 11, but to infinity, both ways, it'll keep growing. It's just hard to be able to visualize it. So domain and range. My range, again, don't get it confused with the 1 here. You got to look at the y-axis. The y-axis value is 0 right here. 0 is included in that, and it goes to infinity. This is where I said it can kind of be tricky. The blue line represented our domain, x values, starting at 1. My y value, I have to come down to where it starts. That is actually 0 for my range. And if you didn't pause it the last time and you don't have this, if you want to pause it now and do the last one, go ahead. All right. So look at this function. I have a point here that's filled in and a point that is not filled in. Okay, so make sure anytime you see that, you need to be aware, bracket or parentheses. So let's look at domain first. Domain is the x-axis, so what I'm going to do is look along the x-axis. Looks like it starts or ends at a -4, and it goes all the way over, goes through the origin, goes through 0, all the way over to 3. So this is my domain from a -4 to 3. -4 to 3. -4 is included, so I use a square bracket, -4. 3 is not included, open circle. Use a parenthesis. Range. Range deals with your y-axis. I go to my highest point, 1, and I go down to my lowest point, -4. Is -1 included in there? Yes. It's part of the graph. So, whoops, wrong color. -1 is included. But what about down here to 3? Not included, parenthesis. So this is very helpful to visualize. Do one at a time. Whenever you look at domain, go along the x-axis, find out where it is. Again, you must also be able to visualize that these graphs continue to go out. Continue to go out. This one would continue to go out. This one here does not. This one here does not. Look at your domain and then look at your range. Domain mentally is usually easier because it's the first one that you do. Whenever you do the range, for instance, this one, a lot of people would say, oh, well, it goes from 1 to infinity. Not true. Get something, sketch along there, get a color marker, color pencil, highlight it with your pencil, and you'll see it actually starts at 0 on the y-axis, continuing on to infinity. Ladies and gentlemen, that is domain and range. One other thing, or one reminder, open circle does not include the point. You'll use a bracket. Closed circle includes that point. You'll use the square bracket, or you'll use a parenthesis rather for your closed circle or open circle. All right, guys, good luck with your homework.